Welcome to the Inspiring Victory Show, where we help you double your business, double your impact, and change the world. And I cannot think of anyone I know who changes the world more every single day than Christina Winters, who I have with us today. Christina came from humble beginnings and made her way out to California and eventually to Texas, worked her way up in various different companies to being incredibly successful, winning every possible award, and then started her own business, which she was able to make extraordinarily successful, eventually selling it for more than most people could ever even possibly imagine, a company that had 250 million in assets under management. So quite a powerhouse with an amazing story to share. And we are very, very lucky because I don't think there's much that Christina doesn't know about starting a business, growing a business, making a business successful. So we're going to go right ahead and ask you some questions and get your ideas and thoughts for you who are watching at home or in your office. Hi, Christina. Nice to see you. I'm so glad you're
Hi,
here.
Sarah. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you.
Oh, well, we're honored to have you on the show. Well, I wanted to ask you a couple of things. What do you think, the world changes all the time. What do you think are the big changes that we need to be paying attention to that will impact us the most? We've got AI, we've got the change sometimes in the status of politics or any of those things. But what do you think is going to have the biggest impact in the next 5 years? You are quite the futurist, so I'm wondering if you have any thoughts.
Well, while you were asking me, I was thinking, the future is evolving in a very odd fashion with this AI. A lot of industries are worried about it. I believe that what it's going to do is create an opportunity, not so much to make things easier, but enhance what we're doing and having it be more effective. I think that the challenge with people progressing in their lives, it's going to change with the AI because of the attitude of people thinking, oh, well, now it's going to be easier. Because bottom line, it's what you're thinking, okay? Because AI, and before that, it was emails, and then
there's always some new technology that everybody's all excited about, but we don't realize that we still have to be the ones, that are implementing that. Having been around for a while in business, both of us, you having done so many amazing things, we're hitting a time where we have seen this is, this is going to be the next big thing. This is going to be the next big thing. And it does change things dramatically. But what never changes is, like you said, it's still, what are you thinking? What are your people thinking? What are your salespeople thinking? Because that informs how they use whatever cool tool is out there. Correct? Is that what I'm
correct? Because
from you?
That old saying, the wind blows for everybody, right? The sail is what is the difference.
The set of the sail and not the gale. The set of the sail and not the gale determines where you end. We're at very famous said by Jim Rohn. Yeah.
So, and in my book, The Revolution of Achievement, the whole premise is your mind controls everything. Whatever you're thinking, you're correct. And I love it when I get into a conversation with somebody and they're contradicting me. And I say, you know what, you're right. And they go, really? I said, yes, because you believe that. So do you want to continue to believe that? Or would you like to change the trajectory of your business by changing the trajectory of your thinking? Because that really is the key, no matter what's coming up for us, computers, emails, AI.
Now AI, whatever the next thing is,
it still beam me up, people. Scotty.
It still involves. It still always involves people. You can have all the tech solutions in the world. You still have people you need to interact with. I know it's so funny because sometimes I get to speak to a group of salespeople. Two favorite things that they do are, one is that they'll say, well, our industry is much more difficult for salespeople than any other industry. Now, I've spoken for probably 35 industries. And they all tell me that theirs is the most, that is not possible. Sales is just difficult. And I don't have the heart to break that to them. And the other thing that I think is interesting is they'll say, well, people just aren't buying right now, or, well, it's the economy, or it's this, or it's that, like, whatever, the economy's good. They don't like that. Economy's bad. They don't like it. No matter what it is. And it's really interesting because I see them making a decision on what's possible rather than saying, well, maybe I need to talk, instead of 1 in 10 people buying from me, maybe it's 1 in 12 or even 1 in 15. They decide no one's buying, nothing. So I finally said to this one guy who I was interacting with in a speech I was doing, I said, how many people are in the United States? And he said, I don't know, like 300 million or something. I said, and so you're telling me not one of those 300 million people wants to buy from you? Not one? Have you talked to them all? And everybody just kind of went, oh, right. There must be somebody. It may be a little harder because people are more nervous. And you may have to talk to a few more people than you did the week before when things are a little more challenging. But yeah, like you said, once you've made a decision, you're right. If you've decided nobody wants to buy from you, you're not going out, you're not making an effort, you're not talking to lots of people because you've made that decision. And therefore you become right. And I never thought about it that way until you said that. Yeah.
Right.
It's so true.
The power of intention is what drives your results.
Tell me about that.
Well, for example, I go into a firm consulting. I just did one for 3 months, and she says, I just don't know how to take my business to the next level. And she was looking for something outside herself that she was not doing, that she needed something to bring in. And what I always support my consulting work with is, where are your talents? Let's expand on that. And we did that. We looked at what it is she does really well. How did she get where she was right then? And how do we expand on that talent? And she ran with that. And it was so wonderful because she doubled her business inside of 14 months.
My favorite phrase. Yeah.
And what was really great was I watched her lift up the people in her firm. It's kind of like that old saying by JFK, a rising tide lifts all boats. So once the leader lets go of looking for something instead of expanding on what is, then the people see that and they mimic that. And that's where all the success comes in the company, with guidance, of course. So I worked with her for about 3 or 4 months, and her firm and her people. And it was such a delight. That's what I love about this business. I get to see the principles that I have learned in my career and see them put into their businesses, and they expand just like my business did. So it's just a gratifying profession.
Oh, how lovely. And you're so good at what you do, and you have so much wisdom and knowledge that you're amazing at bringing out greatness, whether it's in the CEO or whether it's in their salespeople or their whole team. You just have that Midas touch and an ability to bring out greatness in other people. It reminds me, I got to speak for Mary Kay Cosmetics. Yeah. And I finally got to meet Mary Kay herself. This was a long time ago, back when she was around, and Mary Kay Ash, and she was lovely. But one of the things that she said that stuck with me was, she said, the speed of the leader will always be the speed of the pack. If you're not happy with the speed of your pack, you have to look at you, because you really set that speed. You set that tone. And I never forgot that. And I think you have that ability to be the leader that your team deserves and show other people how to be the leader that their team deserves, and to model what everybody else should be doing. And more importantly, it sounds like from what you're saying, what they are thinking that allows them to be more successful. What a great
Right.
project. She sounds wonderful. What is it that you love most when you're speaking? What is it that you like? Because you obviously you speak all over and you're, beautiful to watch and your story's amazing. What is it that you love most about speaking?
When I look out in the crowd and make eye contact with people, it gives me the ability to, and I don't want this to sound strange, but I almost can feel them going, oh, oh,
Mm.
and watching them expand their consciousness. Because, like I said before, everything is consciousness. The leader is the one that can create breakthroughs. And you can't create a breakthrough if you are going, oh, and you mentioned this before, but it's this bad time of the year. Well, this happened in the world. I'm having a bad time at home. The weather is bad. I shouldn't call this person again because I've called them twice and they didn't answer and they didn't respond back to me. Well, it's never about you. It's never about you. It's always about the other person's life and what's going on with them. And if you try to make reasons up in your head over any kind of results you're getting, other than everything always works in my favor, and I'm always in the right place at the right time, talking to the right people about the right things, you're shooting yourself in the foot. If you're not thinking that all the time instead of whatever else you make up. Because leadership, management is a conversation. And you control the conversation in your firm. You are the one that controls the mood, the conversation. It's got nothing to do with anything else. Some people, you do need to redirect their careers and support them in moving on. Or they will choose out themselves, and that is always a blessing. When someone walks out the door, then you got to know, okay, that the next person that's coming in is going to be a better level of expertise. It always works that way. So if you always think that way, that is always going to occur for you. And sometimes you have to go through 2, 3, 4 people in a position until you get the right one. But you never want to keep somebody. As soon as you realize that this is not the person for you, then you need to help them to redirect their career, because it will not work for either you or for them. Neither of you will be happy. So you're actually helping yourself and that person to help them to move on. And then you open the space. See, you can't keep somebody in the space and say, well, I'm going to keep this person here until I can find somebody else. I have found that if you do that, you will find somebody else, but it's not like you opening up the space by helping that person move out as quickly as possible, because the universe fills an open space, and the right person will come if you are filling that space with intention and expectation. Because intention and expectation, this is a funny thing. Again, I was on a consulting job, and one of the people came in to me. I called this person 5 times. You told me I needed to call them and get them scheduled to meet when we were having a group meeting. Would you give them a call for me? I said, sure. I picked the phone up. They answered. And we got it booked, and I hung up. She goes, how did you do that? I said, I had the intention that we had to get a hold of this person. That makes a difference. Now, I'm not saying that everybody answers the phone for me all the time. And clearing your mind and making an actual thought, I'm going to get in touch with this person, that causes more intention, and you have a better opportunity of actually contacting that person.
Well, that would engage your creativity too, where you're like, okay, I'm not getting them on the phone. I could try a text, or I could try an email, or I could try all three of those things, or I could have a friend call them, or I could,
Right.
All of a sudden, that intention makes you do things you wouldn't ordinarily do if
Right.
you
It's
have that
redirecting
intention.
energy. For example, if you're ever in a presentation one-on-one with somebody and they do something like this or like this, you need to stop and redirect the energy completely. Look around the room. I'm sorry, but I just noticed that photograph or that picture over there. Where did was that on a trip or something? So what they do is they go from this to this or from this to this, and they answer. And then you go, oh, great. That's really great. Thank you. And then you go, I'm sorry. Let me get back to what I was saying. But see, now you've got a whole different road in front of you.
So this intention has a sales impact as well, because it's the same sort of thing as, coming in with an intention that you're going to keep them 100% engaged, you're going to be 100% engaged. And if you lose that engagement, you're going to shift the energy so that it continues on the path of what your intention is. I see people work, especially as speakers. I see young speakers, up and coming speakers, people who haven't done it much, focusing very, very hard on the words and not very hard on the intention. And as you and I both know from speaking, that intention works when you're in front of an audience just as well. Are you there for your own glorification, or are you really there with a noble goal to help them succeed in a whole new way and to give them a point of view that is really going to help them the rest of their lives? And that is exactly what you do. You show up with a real intention. So whether it's a sales situation or a speaking situation or a consulting situation, you're using the power of intention to accomplish what's in the highest and best good for everyone that is involved.
Correct. And people sense it.
I think they do. I think
yes,
you're right.
It's subconscious. It's a subconscious thing, and it gives them a feeling of safety and trust. When you trust yourself and your intentions, it projects without you even saying anything. Sometimes, they'll say, wow, when you come into a room, it's like everybody notices. Well, is intention and also energy, because energy is a critical aspect in anything. Once when I was a child, I was watching TV, and it was something, Bob the Science Guy or something. And he was trying to explain a cell and how inside a single cell, all the energy that's going on, because if you look at it under the microscope, it's like sizzling, right? A cell is. And to demonstrate that, he had a pool table with a bunch of mouse traps, and each one of them had a little ping pong ball on it. And he said, let me show you what it's like inside of a cell. And he threw one ping pong ball onto the table, and it just started a whole percussion of all the ping pong balls going. And that stuck with me so dramatically that I still remember it now. I can actually see it in my mind and how I felt. And it was so overwhelming to me to actually see it happening. When you're looking at a picture, it's different. So that's who we are as individuals. We are an energy source, got trillions of cells in our body, And that is, and where most of them are in the center of our body, which is why people cross their arms, right? They
It's a
cross their arms.
sensitive part of the body too. Yeah,
Right,
for sure.
right. So it's a good sign to know that you're getting to a place where they're feeling vulnerable or maybe threatened. And that is one of the things that I teach is about paying attention to the body language of everybody in your firm, in your family, because it all makes a difference.
It all has impact for sure. Yeah.
And having people feel trusting and supported is critical.
Well, and that's always your intention, is everything to be a win-win. That's just who you are. And again, to make people feel, they can feel trust, they feel safety, they feel that you're going to be, really listening and really, really paying attention to what it is that are the most important things to them. So that's a powerful, powerful message. That's a really powerful message. I think people are looking for, like you said, so many external things. Oh, it's just if we just get the right software. Oh, if we could, somebody, your team still has to run that software. And if they're not thinking in a way that is of the kind of intention you're looking for, if you've got some people that maybe their careers do need to be redirected or just need your coaching or support as the leader, it can make such a huge, huge, huge difference. But again, I think I see a lot of leaders that are like, well, we're just going to get if we just get this new software, that's going to fix everything. Well, who's going to run the software? You're going to train them to do the software? But somehow this external thing is going to make all the difference. Or I just want to get my company out there. I'm like, what, outer space? You have to be a little more specific than that and realize that all of the things that you need are usually right within your grasp if you just think differently. And that's the kind of what you mean by this, correct? Yeah. Have you ever had anything that was particularly challenging in the business that you had to overcome that other people might learn from? I always say, learn from the mistakes of others. You don't have time to make them all yourself, which is courtesy of one of my favorite clients, Bonnie Dean, the great speaker and up for Speakers Hall of Fame again. But is there something that you had to overcome that we might learn from?
One of the things, again, I was working with a company, and at the state level, there was a bill in the House and the Senate that was going to be a major impact. And what we did was we reached out to everybody in the firm asking if anyone knew a representative or a senator that we could go and talk to about this. Well, long story short, because, the 6 degrees of separation is very real. An employee who wasn't really in a big, important position actually knew a House of Representative person that I went with her boss, and I went and talked to her. And of course, we're always in the right place at the right time, talking to the right people. And we went to her, and she put one of her people on writing a bill to support the people in the state. And that was our intention. So we knew that this is the way it needed to be. And then she led us to a senator, and they actually called me at 10 o'clock at night when the bill was getting put through the Senate. And who would have thought that bill passed at midnight that night, and all the people in that state actually benefited, and it benefited my client's firm. Yes. And that wasn't why we were doing it.
That was a nice byproduct, though. Yeah. And I think that the whole idea of elevating it beyond, we just want this because we want this, to, no, this could benefit, the whole point is it could benefit a lot of people. So that is quite a challenge to overcome. Tell me more.
Aspect of my book is discovering purpose-driven success. And that's what I'm talking about.
Tell me more.
Purpose-driven success. Our purpose was to all the people in the state that were going to be affected by that bill. Was it going to affect my client's company? Oh, yes. But there were a lot of other companies in the state that was going to be affected by it, which means that there were going to be a lot of other people that were going to be affected by it. So then what we did was we let all that fall to the background and focused on the real purpose of all of our efforts was to help the people that will be moved forward because of that bill being passed the right way.
Nice. So you overcame quite a challenge in that situation. And I love how you said, yes, of course, this is going to benefit your client's company. However, if you elevate things to a higher level of, how is this right for the world? How is this good for the world?
What's the higher purpose?
But what's the higher purpose? Again, is how, why can't we have businesses that have a higher purpose and hold ourselves to a higher standard, as well as being extremely profitable? There's no reason you can't do both. I think people want to work in a company where there is a noble purpose and where you're doing good for people and where you're impacting things in a good way. So you're obviously doing some good for people. But again, you're saying, let's elevate that up above to that purpose-driven business success. Wow. How does that impact you? Yeah.
There's this one company of purpose-driven success. They sell socks. Okay. So what they decided to do was for every pair of socks that was purchased, they would donate a pair of socks to homeless.
Right. Bomba socks. Bomba socks. Yes, we all love Bomba socks. It's a great example. It's a great example.
Yes.
And
Yes.
they discovered, if I remember correctly, they discovered that the number one thing that was being asked for in homeless shelters was
Socks.
socks. They wanted socks. And so they're answering the call. But again, why have I ever even heard of these guys? Why do I buy my socks? Because of the fact that we want a pair to, even if they're more expensive, and they are very nice socks, but we want them to go to those homeless people. So again, that's a perfect example of how do you blend a noble purpose and, that would
Right. Purpose-driven success.
Purpose-driven business and personal success. How do we combine those with it being successful for you as a business and successful for the world? And I just think more businesses need to be wired that way, because it's fun to be working with a company that's doing something that has that purpose-driven success and still success, not just success for others, but also success for you and your company. We all deserve success by our own definition, I believe. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I am so incredibly honored to have you as a part of the Inspiring Victory tribe at the Inspiring Victory Show. Please do us a favor. We really need your help. Please like, subscribe, share, write a comment. It makes a huge difference with how many people we can reach here at the Inspiring Victory Show, and it makes a big difference to me personally. I want to make sure that we're providing content to as many people as we possibly can so they can grow and succeed. So we'd love to have you continue your membership here at the Inspiring Victory Show. It's free. Helping us out costs nothing, but it makes a huge difference in how many people we can help. So double your business, double your impact, and change the world. And thank you so much for being a part of this extraordinary community. Thank you. What is your favorite thing to talk about in front of a group as a speaker? What's your favorite topic?
Everything's a conversation. So when you're talking about anything, and we've touched on this a couple of times in this podcast, everything is a conversation. And it's the conversation in your head and the conversation that you speak out to everybody in the firm. So how you're talking to people, how you're always looking at what's working instead of what's not working, Again, I mentioned one of the critical things that I do when I take on a consulting job is first take a tally of what everybody's doing right here, not what they're doing wrong. That will eliminate itself when we focus on what they're doing right and expand that. And what happens is the conversation elevates itself. And with an elevated conversation on, yes, I can, yes, we can, yes, they can, then everything changes. Because whatever you put out comes back. Every action has a reaction. So if you're out to, and this is not the way you run a business, but I know that some do. Well, we're going to destroy them, right? We're going to overcome them. Well, you may do that, but it's going to happen to you also, eventually. Okay, live by the sword, die by the sword. That's just reality. And if you don't, and you're left with just yourself and talking to a person, then you might have an argument over it, but no one's going to die, right?
Right.
So
right. Emotionally or physically. Yeah.
Correct. Correct. So it's all about a conversation. And that sounds easy, but let me tell you, Sarah, it's the hardest thing to do. And that's why people say, oh, no, that's not it. That's too easy. Well, no, it's not easy. Because redirecting your constant thoughts in your head is very difficult. First of all, you've got to figure out what they are. Okay. Right. So you have to start taking a tally. You have to start paying attention to what you're thinking on a daily basis, moment by moment. And that's not easy. And then you just write it when you hear yourself saying something negative about whatever's going on in your business or your life, you just got to write it down. And then you got to know that that's probably driving you a lot during the day. So then you need to rewrite that phrase and write that down. When I very first started in this concept many years ago, I had, this is how long ago it was, I had 3x5 cards.
Okay, still would work today. That's okay.
Yes, would, yeah, right. With
yeah.
all my positive statements on it. And I would read them 3 times a day. And you know, if you do something for 21 days, you commit it. And your mind is like a file drawer, okay? And there's 2 guys down in your file drawer, okay? Ralph and Clem. And you have one positive thought, and they get this sheet of paper coming down into the file room, okay, called your conscious, your subconscious. It says, hey, Clem, we got this, I double my business this year, and we don't have a file for it. And then the other guy goes, well, let's just put it aside and wait and see what happens. So until Clem, down in your subconscious, gets a lot of sheets of paper that say, I'm doubling my business this year, then they make a file drawer and they push the other one back that said, well, I can't because of this. I won't.
It's impossible. It'll never work.
Right, right. So that gets pushed in the back of the file drawer. But let me tell you, this is another thing. It never goes away. Negative thoughts are like weeds. You know, weeds will break through. You can concrete a driveway, right? And gosh darn, you know, you wait like a season and sure enough, there's a crack. And up through that crack comes a weed. And you can throw some weed killer down there, but sooner or later, it's going to come back. So you've got to constantly monitor that crack in the concrete because that little negative weed is going to come back up. So you've got to consistently, it's not something you change and it's done. You have to constantly be aware of it because we're human beings. We're humans. We are flawed by nature. So we tend, and of course, then the world is so darn negative out there, especially currently with all of what's going on. And I truly believe love will overcome everything on the planet. I think that is a universal thought that has been present over the millennial. So they're being kind and being supportive and constantly monitoring your own thoughts in that realm, in that vein, is critical because, excuse me, you're going to have a bad day. And, I tell people, I have sleepless nights also, worrying, because those negative thoughts come like right before dawn, right? And you're going, oh my God, can I really do this? And first thing you got to know is you're on the right path because you're scared. Okay? Nothing happens if you just breeze through. Sometimes it happens that way, but most of the time you're frightened. I know actors and actresses have shared that they even throw up before a presentation or when they're going into a movie set because they're scared, but scared makes you conscious. It brings you present. And that gives you the ability to allow your talents to come through. You just have to push the fear away, but you're not going to get rid of it. You need to lock arms with your fear because it will help you. It always helps you because if you're afraid, you're conscious and you're looking and you're assessing all the time. And if you're assessing with a positive thought in your mind, you're going to see the path. And Rumi, wonderful thinker, step on the path, start on the path, and it will appear. And what was that movie? Indiana Jones, one of his movies where he had to step out into the abyss because it was an invisible bridge.
Right. Oh, yeah. It's
Right.
you have to, it's the often attributed to Martha Graham, but probably much earlier, leap and the net will appear. And I do believe that, where they don't give you an idea of something to do or no matter how scary or how difficult it is of a climb, you aren't given that thought and that idea over and over and over again. If you don't have something inside of you and your team maybe doesn't have something inside of all of them that will allow you guys to actually get there.
Right. There was a golfer, and forgive me, Mr. Golfer, I forget your name, but just recently, he's been in the game a long, long time, and he's never gotten the green jacket. Okay.
Oh, the Masters. Isn't that the Masters that is the green jacket, I think? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah.
He finally won it this last weekend. So,
wow.
And he said, never give up on your dream, no matter how old you are. Because he's an older golfer and he's been at it a long time and he's never won the green jacket. So you can't say, I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm a woman, I'm a man, I'm not the right color, I don't have the right education, I don't come from the right side of the tracks. Whatever I don't know, and you give all these thoughts about the reason why you don't have the same opportunity that everybody else does. In fact, I know a lot of PhDs that can't even support themselves financially. Just saying.
Yeah, well, it doesn't necessarily matter. It doesn't matter how much, yeah, how much education you have, how much, we've all seen people who had plenty of money and managed to lose it in no time. So yeah, it's not,
It's
it's more
desire.
complicated than that. Yeah.
It's
Oh,
the desire, the purpose-driven success, pushing yourself out of the picture. You want to achieve XYZ. As you said, you wouldn't have the idea if you didn't know how to do it. And I forget the prophet that said the creature cannot conceive of an idea it cannot achieve. So if you've got the idea, believe it or not, no one else has the same idea that you have. Even in the same business, they have different reasons, different ideas, and there's more than one way to be successful. For example, in financial planning, there are myriad number of probably couple 30 million financial planners, and probably half of them are exceptional. And they all have a different path for their clients to become successful. So there's more than one road to Rome, right?
absolutely.
Or Oz,
Absolutely. Or Oz, we'll take Oz. We'll take Oz.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was reminded of a famous quote by Einstein where he said that once you've expanded your mind to a whole new space, nothing, that's Oliver Wendell Holmes, but a mind once expanded will never go back to its original shape. But the Einstein quote was about how no problem can withstand the assault of sustained thinking. And I think we all tend to think again that all the solutions are going to be tech, but you still have to have, you are still a person and your people are still people. And that sustained, no problem can withstand the assault of sustained thinking. If I'm attributing it to the wrong person, somebody tell me in the comments on the show. But either way, it's such a great quote. And I think that's what you're saying is that sustained thinking. It's not Pollyanna, just be positive about everything and never have a negative feeling. If you need to, curl up on the couch and watch the Housewives of whatever and eat a carton of ice cream once in a while, you do you, Velcro your wrist to your forehead and enjoy yourself. But after that, again, start monitoring your feelings and your thoughts again, and figure out, how are you going to use that power of intention to get where you do want to go. And that's the magic that you've been able to unlock in yourself after all of these years. And so
when you said that about ice cream, that's not my downfall. My downfall is chips and queso. Oh my God.
You're a salt girl. I could go with that too. I'll do that.
I'm in
I'm
Texas,
okay with that.
I go to a Mexican restaurant, I fill up on chips, queso, salsa, and guacamole. And then they say, what do you want for dinner? I went,
And now I'm full.
And sometimes I'll just get home and just have chips and queso for dinner. I just eat a lot of it, right?
I do too. It's one of my favorites. It's hard to get in Europe. I'll just tell you right now, it is very difficult to get either of those things in Europe. Sometimes you have to make them yourself. All right. So any last advice that you would have for somebody on their way up that wants to be successful? And again, we've got people that are a little more nervous, I think, than usual with some of the world events going on. What is the number one advice that you would give to an up and coming leader, somebody who wants to be you?
Only listen to the people that are encouraging you. Anybody in your life that's saying, listen, you've been working at this a long time, you just need to give up. Or someone said to me when I was actually on a trip, and it was the guide that had given up on her career and ended up she already had a degree in something, but it was too hard. And she said, sometimes you just have to realize that you need to be comfortable with the way things are. Okay, that will not.
That's bad advice.
Right.
Bad advice. Yeah.
Bad advice. So those are people you don't want to listen to. In actuality, here's the hard part, ladies and gentlemen. You got to get them out of your life. and
Mm,
sometimes it's
mhm,
family. So
mhm, mm.
sometimes I moved away.
You got to do what
Maybe
you got to do. You got to do.
yeah,
You,
and
I mean, you have to, at a certain point, you have to decide you're going to ruthlessly protect your spirit and ruthlessly protect your dreams. And that may mean limiting your interactions with certain people to just holidays or something. But
right.
yeah, if they're going to, I remember Jim Rohn used to say all the time that you can never, ever, ever forget the power of influence. If you think you can hang around with a bunch of Debbie Downers and Donald Downers, and that's not going to impact you, that's not going to change you one whit, you are crazy, because there is no way on earth that you cannot be impacted by the people you allow into that very, very important inner circle. And sometimes they have to be moved maybe to a second circle, third circle, fourth circle, or to Siberia. But because you have a purpose here on this planet that you came here for, and if you know what that is, you can't let anybody stop you from doing good in the world, and good for the world and good for you too. So I
And there's
agree.
nothing more fulfilling than
Mhm.
seeing your dream come to fruition. And then usually, well, not usually, then what happens though is another dream pops up. Okay,
Mhm.
so I've done this. I
Yeah.
became a manager. Okay, top manager in the country 3 years in a row. Now I want to be a vice president, right?
Yeah,
And
which you
I
did.
pitched, I pitched being vice president 3 times inside of 7 months, and I got denied all 3 times. And then I thought, oh my God, maybe I was starting to have thoughts, like, well,
Doubts.
maybe they're
Mhm.
right. And I thought, that's not right. So what I did was I went and did a ropes course, because in something like that, you really get to examine yourself and how you interact in life by how you act in that ropes course. And I did that ropes course in July of that year. And in September, I got a phone call from the president and, well, his secretary, and she said, Mr. Mortimer would like you to come to breakfast. And first thing he said was, still want to be a vice president? And I said, you bet. He said, okay. I was in LA at the time. He said, it's Dallas. I said, I don't care where it
Go to the
is.
moon, thank you very much.
Right, because
Yeah, it's what you
it was,
wanted.
that was
And then
my
you it,
plan.
and then you'd ultimately wanted your own business, which has then become
Right,
more and more successful
right.
to a point where you were able to sell it for $1 gazillion. Congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
that was what led to people saying to you all the time, oh, can you come in and coach our company and help us build up to the
Right.
same way?
So
And can you
it's
come and speak? And so it's like now you have a whole new goal after you did that.
right.
You could rest on your laurels. We'd all be happy for you and proud of you. I love the fact that you're never done. You're like, okay, now how can I contribute? How can I change the world in a positive way? And you
Step.
can't change the
What's
world
the
if you don't
next
change
level?
yourself.
Right.
You're saying you can't change the world if you don't change yourself first. And I love that whole way of looking at things. Well, I admire you greatly, as you know. I just adore you as a person. And it's always such a thrill to get to see you speak and to have you on the show. Is just a big dream come true. Thank you for being here. And thank you, audience, for joining us. Christina and I both are delighted to see you. Please
Are.
double your business, double your impact, change the world, starting with yourself, and just basically model Christina and do something brave every day to get exactly where you are meant to go, because we both believe in you.
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, Marites Bott of Bott and Associates.
I'm so honored to get to be with our wonderful sponsor for the Inspiring Victory Show. And I want to make sure you know a little bit more about her and about what they do, because I think it'd be really helpful for all of us as business people and just in our personal lives. Marites does a lot of speaking, as many of you probably know, but I love one of the speeches that she's famous for, which is A Generous Legacy, the power of future-proofing your business and your personal life. And that's really what you are all about. So I want to talk a little bit about that with you. And can you give us an example of somebody who's come to you and how you were able to help them that might be able to help all of us as we navigate our financial planning as well as our estate planning for business and for personal?
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, thank you for having me, Sarah. I appreciate it. We do a lot of estate planning, obviously, as well as the financial planning for our clients. And a story that I think is a great way to showcase what we do is this wonderful couple that we met back in, I want to say 2015. They came in for a consultation. So they are certainly a wonderful couple, blended family. So second marriage for both of them. He has children and she does not. Basically, they were saying to me, Meritus, I really want my estate plan to be secure. I want it to be ironclad so it goes to the right people. Particularly the wife was concerned that this money goes to her charities, which she was very, very active in and volunteers quite a bit. She puts her hard-earned money with them. And she also wants to make sure her husband is taken care of as well. So she wanted to do both objectives at the same time. We were like, of course we can help you with that. We want to make sure that we write everything down and just like you said, make it ironclad so that there's no contest. There's nobody trying to get to the money inappropriately. Right. So we created a wonderful estate plan for them. So that was 2015. Now, sadly, she unexpectedly passed a few years later. And her surviving spouse came to us and he really needed help. He was so, of course, distraught and super, super sad. But he was also very concerned about the financial pieces. He wasn't that familiar with financial instruments. There was 13, 14, 15 accounts that she had. And of course, he was like, I'm confused. What do I do with all of this? So we said, okay, we're going to take care of you. We got this. And we were able to really take a hold of all those instruments and all those accounts. And on our financial side of our business, we were able to consolidate them, invest it in very prudent investments and make sure it's easy for him to manage. So we were able to do that within 3 to 6 months. His late wife's wishes of him being able to live on that money and then eventually at his death, give it to her charities is exactly what's going to happen. So wonderful to be able to plan it properly, give her peace of mind. A few years later, we're honoring 100% of her wishes. This money is not going to go to anybody inappropriately. And her beneficiaries, her charities, are going to be so happy to be able to get this money upon his death because he is still able to live on that income. So I love those stories because to me, we work so hard. We sacrifice daily, right? We work so hard and we want to be able to take our money and be able to give it to people that we love and charities that we believe in.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us. I always enjoy spending time with you. And yeah, you're one of the people I always find so much value in talking to. You're just walking integrity and you're a good soul. And you help people. You help people. So thank you for being on the show again and for sharing with us and for always doing such a great job for everybody. And now that you're able to do even more and be more of a one-stop shop to help people with all these different issues, I think your company and you are even more valuable. Thank you so much. Always lovely to see you. Meritus Bott and Associates. If it's something that you need, be sure and contact Meritus right away. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.